Second player, press start.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Second Player Press Start. My name is James and I'm joined, as always, by my friend Darin.
Yeah, and now you can see me on the couch.
Well, yeah, so if you're a regular audio listener to this podcast, in theory, nothing should sound too different, I guess. That's the plan. But if you're watching us on YouTube, we now have a video version. We're going to try and implement this for every podcast that we do.
Right.
I've been doing some things kind of behind the scenes where hopefully we can kind of limit the production of the podcast and kind of pump these out a little bit quicker. So who knows? I think typically we've been doing this every 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
So maybe the goal is that if we can produce these a bit faster, then we can get this out to you faster, and then maybe there'll be more content coming to you.
Sounds good.
So yeah, if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, just head to our website and you can find all of that information. And the URL is
secondplayerpressstart.com. That's second two, number two, ND, playerpressstart.com.
But we're not here to talk about behind the scenes stuff.
Or websites.
Or
other things, but games.
Games. And the specific game that we're here to talk about today is a game that kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's kind of indie, not very well known, but I don't know, maybe they've heard of it.
Yeah, this game just kind of dropped, pardon the pun. And that game is...
I see what you did.
You see what I did there?
Yeah.
And that game is Apex Legends. It's a game from Respawn, who I think they were ex-Call of Duty guys. I think they came from Infinity Ward, I want to say.
It's possible. I know them through Titanfall.
Yeah, then they went on to make Titanfall, which was... The first game was... I believe it was more of a multiplayer shooter than anything, and then the second game had a pretty good campaign from what I've heard. But I think it released in a time where Battlefield and Call of Duty were out at the same time.
Right.
So it kind of got buried, and we didn't. While the game got a lot of critical acclaim, it didn't sell as well as they hoped, which is why they've hinted that this game takes place in that universe.
Yeah, I've heard that too, that it's in the Titanfall universe, but that doesn't mean anything to me.
No. Yeah, which is probably why they called it Apex Legends, but there's no real hint other than some small lore stuff that this takes place in the same universe. So they kind of like announced this game and released it at the same time. It was kind of like an unexpected thing. And yeah, it's kind of taken the world by storm. I think they had a report that they had like 50 million players as of like a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I thought it was 15 million within the first week or something like that. And now it's like closer to 25.
But some crazy, a lot of people are playing it.
Yeah. I also know though, in terms of they didn't do a lot of conventional marketing for the game, for the release, but they did pay streamers.
Yeah.
Like significant money, so I've heard, to pump this game out through their channels to their audiences. So, yeah.
Which, yeah, I guess that isn't really an uncommon thing nowadays, right?
Sure. With
the amount of influence they have. But this game's out for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation 4. I think we first played it on Xbox, just kind of taking some turns.
Yes.
And then you were interested enough to install it on your PC, and we actually played together on PC. Which, again, if you're watching the YouTube version, I think you're seeing some of that footage as you listen to us talk.
Sure. Yeah, we when we played here initially on the console, it was just solo play because we couldn't play split screen. But then once we both had it on PC, we were able to, as a free to play game, it didn't cost us anything either, so that's pretty neat. So we were able to jump on together and group up into one squad and then play some PC. And we'll probably get to it soon enough, but just even the differences between a console version and PC version, there's stuff worth talking about there too. So, I mean, to start off, Apex Legends is a Battle Royale game, right?
Yeah.
We're just like Fortnite, just like PUBG, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Tetris 99.
Tetris 99, yeah, another one, where you're dropped onto like an island, and the circle around you, around the people playing, gets smaller and smaller so that it forces the remaining squads. In Fortnite, you're single player, but in this, it's a squad of 3. And you're forced to get closer and closer to each other to the point where there's only one squad left standing because you've murdered everybody else. And you drop relatively naked. I mean, you've got clothes on, but you don't have armor, you don't have weapons, you don't have ammunition, you've got nothing. And you're supposed to loot that through the world. So different places you drop have different loot, and a lot of it's randomly generated, though certain areas, from what I understand in this game, have higher tier loot than others, or you're more likely to find higher tier loot. Yeah, I think most people at this point who are watching this or listening to it know Battle Royale, know Fortnite, and then through that, Apex Legends.
Yeah, so I guess the thing that like this game does, or I guess the hook of this game compared to any other Battle Royale shooter is really, and the thing that grabbed me most was the strong emphasis on teamwork. Like I know in PUBG and Fortnite, they have kind of team modes, but the main focus is more of kind of solo, just going in by yourself. Whereas this game is a 3-man squad, and you basically live and die by how well you guys can play together. And they've implemented this ping system, which I want every game to do this from now on. It's nothing really new, it's nothing unique, but it's done so effectively that it gives the feeling of like, when Darin and I played, we had mic communication so we could chat to each other. But I've played games on my own where the system is good enough that I felt like, without using words, my team and I were communicating to each other of where enemies were, where loot was, thanking each other if, someone dropped something for me. And yeah, if you try and play this game by yourself, if you kind of deviate away from your team, you're not going to stand for very long. And then I guess the other unique thing about this is the kind of hero system, where at the start of every game you get I think it's up to 9 characters now that they've introduced the season pass. But you get a selection of characters that you can choose from, similar to Overwatch, where each character has its own kind of unique ability.
Right. Now, different than that though is there's not necessarily roles in the same way, and to my understanding, other than maybe some hitboxes being a bit different in terms of the character's size, there's nothing. How can I say it? There's not a particular character that's slower and bigger, so they're like the heavy tank character, and then one that's way faster and smaller that can take less damage, so they're like more of a glass cannon style character.
Right.
Most of the characters at the base level are exactly the same, other than, like I said, hitboxes might be a little bit different. But they each have one passive ability, and then two cooldown abilities. One cooldown ability you can use probably within 30 seconds to a minute, maybe somewhere in there, maybe less time, depending on the character.
Yeah.
And those are like special abilities that you'll use multiple times through a match. And then they have another cooldown ability, and some of these take a few minutes to load up or to charge up, I guess. And those are much more powerful. And so every character has one of each of those three. And that sets them apart from the other characters in the game. It also provides some synergy in the way that you would play with your squad, because there's some characters that there's a character that does healing, for example. There's a character that puts a shield out. There's a character that can see visual references on the map of where people were or where enemies were recently. So there's things that you can do as a squad if you've picked characters that complement each other in that way, that give you an opportunity to outplay your opponents.
Right. Yeah, and so I think, like, even though this is just kind of a standard battle royale, implementing kind of this emphasis on teamwork, as well as these kind of unique characters, which, yeah, everyone on your team has to pick. You can't, like, pick the same character. And they have a system where at the start of the match, it randomizes who gets to pick first, second, and third.
Right.
But if you end up getting, the third pick, you become what they call the jump master. And so you have the privilege then of choosing where on the map you would like to jump, or where on the map you would like to land. So while you didn't get, your first pick of your character, you still have some choice in where you want to land on the map and where you want to kind of guide your team.
Right.
And sometimes that landing spot can be kind of a quick end.
Yeah, it can be. So the way that they do the landing is because the map is, what is it, King's Canyon. The map is the same every time you play. The difference is that there's the plane, your drop plane that comes in. It always comes in from a different angle. So your speed to get to certain locations is going to be faster or slower depending on the angle you're coming through the map. And then it flies over the entire map, which means you can wait it out a bit longer and land on the other side of the map. And then you don't land where as many other people have. In this one versus Fortnite, you're dropping with 60 people, which is 20 squads. 23 person squads. And sometimes you can end up in a space where nobody else drops and you don't see a firefight for a significant amount of time in the game while you loot and you look for things. Other times you can drop in a hot zone, and that's where a lot of other people have dropped at the same time, and you might get in a fight before you even found a gun. And you're trying to punch somebody to death, basically,
Right.
so that you can get whatever loot is available before they do.
Yeah.
And both of those can lend themselves to very different styles of play, even in the first 30 seconds of the game.
For sure.
The game can feel very different in those first 30 seconds, depending on where you drop and how that goes for you.
Yeah, so I mean, I've been playing quite a fair bit of this game on Xbox. How did you find it kind of playing on a controller?
Sure. Yeah, because I don't really own consoles. One of the reasons why I like doing this show is because I get to try different things, and often it's new games that are new for me, as well as new experiences that, even if it's a game you know of, it might be me playing it before you even play it.
Right.
So you're seeing something that you haven't experienced either through the eyes of, somebody sitting on the couch beside you playing a game that you've never played before, and then we talk through it as we play. So for me, playing this game on a console was interesting because not only was it my first experience of the game, but it's a shooter game where shooting matters, and I'm playing with a controller, which I mean, everybody knows if you want precision, you play on a PC, right? And that probably is a good segue into commenting on the differences for you between the console and the PC, because I knew when I first started this game I wasn't going to be any good at it, but especially on the console where my reaction times and stuff and my aiming and stuff isn't as effective as it would be with a mouse. So I was already at a disadvantage there starting on the console. But you talked about there being a significant difference and you being at a disadvantage coming over to the PC.
So yeah, I mean, I installed this on the computer that I have, which it's actually a like 9-year-old Mac Pro that I've kind of converted into a Windows machine. I've thrown in like I found a graphics card for like less than $100. It's a pretty low end card, so I threw that in. But for the most part, I've been able to run games at, kind of low to medium settings. And coming from a console, the graphics don't look too bad, to be completely honest. Especially, I know, the PC Master Race is, usually running on some pretty high-end equipment.
Sure.
So yeah, I kind of, I wasn't really expecting this game to run too well. It doesn't run as well as it does on my Xbox. I think if you're watching the YouTube version of this video, you'll probably notice some screen tearing. It gets a little stuttery. I've updated some graphics drivers that have kind of fixed a bit of my performance stuff, but I mean, I'm just glad that this was able to run at all. But I found definitely when we played on the PC, like just getting slaughtered in compared to the console. And I don't know if it's kind of me having the reverse kind of stance that you do, where because I play mostly on console, that's kind of what I'm used to at this point in my life.
Sure.
And the mouse and keyboard is a bit more alien to me, but I would say that the PC players just seem to be brutal in comparison to the Xbox players. So I found that a little challenging, because while I'm not like a top tier player even on the Xbox, coming into the PC, it was like I kind of felt like I didn't stand a chance.
Right. Welcome to my world.
Like I think there was one match that we matched up with a guy, and he pretty much carried us.
Yeah, hard carry.
To a win. And I don't know if he was. I guess there was reports of people using hacks or cheats in this game. So I don't know if he was maybe doing some of that kind of stuff. And I know that stuff doesn't really exist on the console, which I guess is one advantage of not playing on the PC. But yeah, he carried us right to the end, and he won the match, and we barely did any damage. So
yeah, it was all him. Like by the time we saw our numbers at the end, we're like, yeah, we didn't do anything. I mean, he died once, and one of us revived him, so we wouldn't have won if it wasn't for our being there, which is what you were talking about earlier, being very much a squad-based game. If we weren't there, even in that poor ass capacity, we wouldn't have won, right?
Yeah.
So that's definitely an interesting aspect. I think when you even speaking about cheating, I've heard reports that there's been 350,000 banned accounts for cheating on PC, and there's more every day kind of thing. So it's just something that unfortunately, especially as a free-to-play game, you have to deal with, and that's always unfortunate, because this game, you feel good when you get champion. Like we felt pretty good when that guy carried us, right? It felt good. And when you realize that some people are doing that because they're not even playing the same game you are, like something else is doing it for them. It's just like, why? I don't understand that.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it doesn't make any sense. Like I know that there's some games that I've played, tabletop games, right, where I made a really bad move and I'd like to take it back because I understood what I did. And maybe I'll talk with the players at the table and I'll be like, you know what, I totally screwed that up. Can I just reverse this and go back to where I was or whatever? That you could, in some games you could say, well, that's kind of cheating. No, like I don't want you to do that. But that's probably the closest that I've come to it because I want to play the game for the experience, and by what I mean by that is the real experience, right? Not an aim bot, not some thing that looks for headshots on my behalf kind of thing. And the fact that there's that many people doing it just so that they can be the champion, which I mean, I've gotten champion on PC when I've played with another friend of mine more recently, and it feels good, but at the same time, there's nothing about being the champion in this game that's like I need that every single time, and my ego depends on it. It's really strange to me.
Yeah,
it's really strange to me.
So I guess kind of leading off of that, we should maybe just chat a little bit about kind of the progression. So much like any other kind of free-to-play game, there is a ton of unlockable kind of cosmetic stuff.
Right.
As well as a ton of paid-for cosmetic stuff, which makes sense. I mean, none of that stuff really gives you a gameplay advantage. The other thing that they've locked behind kind of either a progression or kind of you can just straight up pay for it is the additional characters. And I got one character free because I was an EA Access member,
right? Which
is EA's like monthly subscription thingamajig. So I unlocked one character, but the thing that actually kept me playing was even though I was dying or wasn't doing as great as maybe as some of the other players, was that I was still gaining experience, which was making the meter after every match kind of raise up a little bit, which gave me some more credits to the point where I had a goal of I want to unlock that other character.
Right.
So that gave me the incentive to keep playing to kind of earn the credits to unlock that additional character, which I found kind of fun, which like I'm not really a guy that likes to grind for stuff. Like even games that have grinding as a mechanic I'm usually not into, but there was something about kind of working on my skill, but then having that not go to waste. It still went into something where at the end of a handful of hours I actually had enough credits to unlock the last character, which was kind of neat. Yeah, how do you feel kind of about the progression, and I guess the reason, like why would you keep coming back to play this?
Well, yeah, it's interesting you ask it that way, because for me the progression, this kind of meta layer of progression, right, where you're getting more XP, you're getting these resource points, which lets you unlock more content. That alone isn't enough for me to come back to the game. When you first told me about this and we played, it's been a while since I played a shooter that has this kind of competitiveness to it. Right?
Yeah.
We've played some games that have kind of first person shooting elements to them, but not kind of this competitive level. I mean, we've even played Fortnite, right? Like that was something that we played. So I just felt like getting into this game, in being different than Fortnite, is it felt a little more, how can I say it? Felt less cartoony. Right? It felt a little more, real is the wrong word because it's clearly not based in reality, right? But the character models look more like real people. They're less cartoony. some of the weapons and the feedback, the weapon feedback, the bullet spray when you're like holding down on your automatic weapons, and the fact that this game puts a lot into, so there's two types of gun modes in your average first person shooter, and one is, and I forget the terminology for it, but one is wherever your crosshairs are when you click the button, if your crosshairs are on the target, it automatically hits. And there's a special name for it that I could look up, and
but talking like bullet drop kind
yeah. So there's some games out there that when you put your crosshairs on the target you want to hit, and that's when you click your mouse button or your trigger or whatever, as long as your crosshairs are on your target, you'll hit it. It doesn't matter how the distance or anything like that. Whereas in this game, there's physics employed on each bullet.
Right.
So your bullet, depending how far it goes, will drop off because gravity's pulling it to the ground.
Yeah.
Right. So some weapons have a lot more force behind them when they're fired, so they can shoot further, and some weapons don't. So some of the pistols and some of the shotguns drop off sooner, or they spread more, or whatever. So that's one aspect about this game that makes me feel like it's a little more realistic, I guess I could say, right?
Right.
And that's what I mean by that, is the world feels a little more real. There's none of this weird ass building stuff, and that was something, honestly, that was a turnoff for me about Fortnite. And the more that I've heard about it, having not gone back to play it, but the more that I've heard and read about it lately, is that if you can't build well, then you have less of a chance of winning. Being able to build well in that game is a huge advantage in that game.
Yeah, for sure.
So when I hear that, and that's about a game that at its heart people would assume is a shooter game, to me it throws out the core design of it. It says that yes, at its heart this game we're building is a shooter, but building's actually what you need to be good at.
Yeah.
And that to me is like a disconnect. Whereas this, I don't see that same disconnect. I see that this game is about shooting, that the vast majority of the special abilities that the legends have, and that's why it's called Apex Legends, the characters are called legends. But each legend with their special ability, the vast majority of them are around either supporting your team in some fashion, and that can be with health or zip lines or tracking the map, or with direct combat abilities, so defensive or offensive combat abilities. So everything about this game to me puts it in the perspective of this game at its heart is about shooting, and about shooting in a squad-based like company, right?
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that about it. I appreciate that the guns have a good feel to them, that the animations for things feel neat. Things don't feel cheesy in this game. Like there's no silly dance emoji kind of motions.
Not yet.
Not yet, right? It's possible, right? Because it's a customizable game, free to play. Like there's that stuff might be released, right? But even the fact that when somebody's knocked down and they're not quite dead, you can do a finisher, and it just makes you feel like a badass, right? It makes you feel cool. It doesn't make you feel like you're like, like shaking your butt in somebody's face or anything. It makes you feel cool, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's an aspect to this game that is really badass. Like a lot of the characters are really awesome. Some of them are funny, like the Mirage character. That's
kind of he's kind of like a smart ass.
Yeah.
I think he's even voiced by the Uncharted guy. I'm like 90% sure it's the same voice actor, but kind of has that like sarcastic.
Yeah, he's super sarcastic and silly, but not in like a clownish way.
Yeah,
like just cool and kind of smart alecky, right?
Yeah.
But that's something about this game that really appeals to me versus some of the other Battle Royale stuff available. And I'm specifically talking about Fortnite, having not played PUBG, right? And I know PUBG is, again, I've heard that it's for more of the hardcore folks, right? Because it has maybe some of the similar elements that we have here. That said, another thing that adds to that is just the world that they've built. Like it feels like science fiction and post-apocalypse. And it has this kind of gritty realism to it, right? And the world building and the style of it really add to that feeling of like you're cool, you're a badass, you're here to get the job done, to win the game, right? Mm-hmm. And it makes sense in that world, in that setup. And I think even the fact that like in Fortnite you had, correct me if I'm wrong, but you had like parachutes, right?
Yeah.
But in this you have these cool like jump pack, rocket packs on your back kind of thing. And again, it's a different presentation. That the same result is the same. You jump out of a plane and you land on the ground and you slow down as you get closer to the ground. Like the end result is the exact same, but the presentation fits the world and fits the style of the game that they're presenting. And I really appreciate that about this game. I think too, from the presentation of it, the fact that there's one character that we can't see. Bloodhound has a mask on. But a lot of the other characters in this game are people of color.
Yeah.
And not just dudes either. There's quite a few women in the game.
Yeah,
and the women are also badass. Like
yeah.
you don't want to mess with these gals, right? And that's really appealing to me too, because if you first log into this game and you're African American or you have Asian heritage or you're a white person or whatever, there's somebody in the game that you can look at and be like, hey, that maybe kind of looks like me, or their skin color is similar to me, or they have a similar like voice accent that I do. And I think that's really neat, because in a game that's free to play, to make a hard focus on that type of character where, yes, there's customization and you can have different clothes and you can have different poses and things like that, but where the character at its essence looks like a real person, and a real person with diversity, is really, really compelling to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really happy that they've created a cast of characters that are diverse and not your typical kind of, dude bro gamer shooter guys, right? There's no real kind of, the typical space marine looking guy.
Right.
That you would expect to see. I mean, you could even argue that Bangalore, I think is her name. She's kind of your default soldier character, right?
Yeah.
Which you would typically expect in most games to be a white hulking male with,
right. Gears of War style, right?
Yeah,
Marcus
a soul
Phoenix.
patch and a bandana, right? So the fact that it's, a African woman that is equally, if not more, badass, is really cool, and I give kudos to them for creating some really unique, cool characters.
For sure. And then to your point about the ping system, but when we talk about people of color as characters in the game, that's really about being more inclusive, right? Being more diverse in the way that they present the game to their audience. But part of inclusivity is also accessibility. And this game I'm really impressed the level that this game has gone with accessibility, right? There's an accessibility menu or button right at the very opening of the game. And that does everything from different modes of color blindness to turning voice communication into text.
That was very neat. Yeah.
Or turning your text into voice communication. There's also the ping system is a huge step in the right direction for that too, because you're not forcing anybody to type or to speak if they don't want to or if they're unable to. And you can still communicate, like you said, through the modes the game builds for you with the simple click of a button, right?
Yeah.
You're already aiming in the game, so now if you're aiming at a particular thing and you hit your ping button, it says, hey, there's health over here, or hey, there's a weapon over here. When you go into your menu, you can click on your gun and it'll say, I need ammunition for this particular gun, so I need light ammo or I need heavy ammo or whatever. If you don't have a gun in your gun slot, it'll say, I need a weapon, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of this accessibility to me, some of it seems like it could have easily been added later, like, okay, we're going to do this colorblind mode, or we're going to do this text to speech or speech to text kind of thing. But the ping system in its range of communication seems like it was a core design feature probably earlier on in the game, in my opinion. That's what it seems like. Now, I wasn't part of the development, and like you said, nobody even really knew that this game was being developed. So I couldn't really tell you what development was like or even take a guess. But it just seems like the communication ping system was something from the very beginning where they're like, this game is going to be a squad-based shooter. We're going to have 3 people. They each have their own abilities, and you need to be able to communicate with your team in a really easy and fluid, user-friendly way.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important aspect about this game.
Yeah, even when, what was I going to say? Even when you're kind of down and out and you're, because they have kind of 2 states of being kind of killed, quote unquote.
Right.
One state is like you can get knocked down, but you're still alive, and your team member can kind of run over and kind of save you. Even in that state, like you still have the ability to communicate to your team and say, "Hey, there's a guy like right in front of me.
Sure.
He's right here. Can you please come kind of help me?" And then even kind of secondary to that, if they do eliminate you or if your teammates don't rescue you in time, you have the ability to be revived at a beacon.
Right.
So even the fact, like while you're spectating, if someone grabs your beacon or your kind of, what do they call it? It's like a card
It's like a
or
data
banner
pad or something like that.
Yeah. You then have to deliver that to the beacon to be kind of spawned back in. Even while you're spectating, you can press your ping button to let your teammate know where the nearest beacon is. Like, it just seems like it kind of communicates things like every step of the way, no matter kind of what state you're in, whether you're playing alongside or if you're kind of down and out, that communication just seems to always happen.
Right.
And it's one thing to make a kind of run-of-the-mill battle royale shooter, because it seems like that's what everyone's trying to copy these days, but to add these things on top, it really makes this game stand out, and I think that's why it's so popular right now.
Yeah, I think, speaking of the game's popularity and battle royales in general, I feel like one of the reasons is that, yes, this game is good and it does some of these things better than other games in the same genre. But I think the genre itself and the fact that this is a new game that everybody's buzzing about is also just the novelty of it that brings up that critical mass, right? And once you hit a critical mass, especially on a free-to-play title that has some of these battle royale design elements to it, the nature of the way the game is presented and the nature of the battle royale style game puts a lot of emphasis on replayability, right? So what I mean by that is there's an emphasis on getting into the match quickly, and then if you die, getting back into a new match quickly, right? One of the challenges that I find with battle royale in general is that, and this game is no different. In fact, this game I'm frustrated with because of the lack of like personal metrics. There's nothing about the game that tells me that I'm improving, right? Maybe if I get an extra kill this match than I got the last match, or I did more damage, that's maybe one thing. But there's a lot of games out there, even coming from like playing MOBAs and stuff, that give you enough statistics to make you feel like you can see your improvement. Like, I want to die less times, or I want to do more damage, or I want to heal more people, or whatever. And based on the way that the game presents you that after death statistics screen, there's so little information there to actually grab onto and help that inform your future playthroughs. And to me, that's really frustrating because it is a competitive game. It is something that not only has EA and
Respawn
talked about putting towards like putting money and development time and interest into as an esport, right?
Yeah.
Where there's going to be competition, there's going to be real money up for grabs, but without some form of statistics to look at to say that, yeah, I'm actually improving. It seems like I'm dying a lot and I'm frustrated, but I can look at the numbers and be like, you know what? I was alive more often, or I was in more firefights, or all these metrics that could actually help me improve my game.
Yeah.
And there's very few of them right now. So the only thing that I have to go on is the fact that I can see some numbers incrementally going up over time as I play more. So like my XP, like you talked about in the layer, that kind of meta layer of XP gain for the purpose of getting new customizations and like that kind of thing, right? But that doesn't tell me that I'm getting better at the game.
Yeah.
It just tells me that I'm putting more time into it, right?
Yeah, as you put in more time, the numbers go up. Right?
Yeah, pretty much. And that seems to be the way through the entirety of it. Is the more time I put in, the more the numbers go up. But that doesn't tell me that they're going up at a good rate or a bad rate, or maybe the numbers are going up, but I'm actually getting worse at the game.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'd really like some of that in there. Now I know that this game has only been out for a month now, something like that.
Yeah, I think just over a month, I would say. Yeah.
And I haven't played a month's worth of this game, so I can't even speak to where it was when it first came out. I know that there was a recent patch, and that's changed even some of that. There's now, in addition to the normal XP growth meta layer, there's like a battle pass XP growth meta layer on there too. And from what I understand is when you pay for it, you get all the things that you've built up to the point that you weren't paying for it before. You get to keep all that.
Yeah.
So I think that's a neat way to do it. It definitely incentivizes you dropping money on the game.
Yeah.
But that said, going back to my earlier point, I just feel like because of the style of the Battle Royale, if you drop into a hot zone, you could be murdered instantly, right? And then you start up again. If you drop into a hot zone and you manage to get a few kills, then you keep progressing in the game, and then it could be a while till you get in another firefight. But the heart of the game, in my opinion, is the firefight. And because the way the game is designed, the Battle Royale style, you can't guarantee that you're going to be in a firefight, and you can't guarantee when you're going to be in a firefight or even how long it's going to last. So the only way you can improve is get in more firefights. And when you're starting out and you're bad at the game like I am, that means you just die over and over and over and over again. And I'm unfortunately one of the folks on the PC that is having a lot of issues with the game crashing on me.
Yeah.
Sometimes it crashes without any error messages at all. Sometimes it's just a pop-up memory like bug or whatever. But that means that every time it crashes, I've got even a longer period before I get back into a game to then just die quickly again. So the incentive for me getting better at it is that I like the game. I like the shooter elements of it. I like the play of the game, but there's a lot of things about the Battle Royale aspect that make it really hard for me to fully engage. Because as soon as it crashes, if I just lost a match and it crashes when I'm trying to get back in, I'm walking away. And I'll walk away till maybe the next night, or a week later I'll come back to it.
Right.
So that's kind of my beef with it at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I love and also kind of hate about this game is that every match is kind of like a roll of the dice. Like, depending on the players that you've kind of been matched with or partnering up with, depending on the decision of where you land and what gear you find when you initially land, like everything is just such a huge roll of the dice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's been game sessions where for an hour straight I've rolled the dice and it's, I've rolled a 1 every single time.
Right.
And I'm just getting killed, and then it's like, okay, I go back to the menu and I do the same thing again, I get killed. And it can be a very frustrating experience in that sense, because there are variables in this game that you do not have control over.
Sure.
I guess one variable that you could control is if you play with a group of friends, you can control kind of your friends and who you're partnering with.
Right.
So that could be one aspect you can control, but it can be frustrating when you feel like you're just keep rolling that dice and you're not, it's not fun to keep dying over and over again because there are some variables that you can't control.
Right.
On the flip side, like when the game's good and you're matched with some good players and they're communicating to you through this ping system and you actually found a good gun right away so you don't feel like you're at a disadvantage. The game's like a lot of fun.
Sure.
And it almost makes me like forgive like, okay, this one time out of the 10 times that it didn't click for me, this one time was so much fun that I don't mind playing those 9 other times where it wasn't such a fun time.
Right.
And yeah, I've had moments in this game where when everything's working great and you're matched with a good team, it's just a ton of fun. And the fact that this game's free, I've even put down other games because of this game. I had a pre-order for The Division 2 come in, and I ended up returning the game because I felt like I will have more fun playing Apex than I will this new game. So
interesting.
And that may change a month from now. Like, I might get sick and tired of this game, but right now I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'll keep playing it. But yeah, to the point where like I'm putting down other games because of this game.
Right.
Because I feel when it clicks, it does such a good job. And even when we played together, even though we completely sucked, I still had a lot of fun because it was nice playing with someone that one I could trust was going to stick with me or do their best to try and kind of help our team succeed as a team. So
right. Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like the idea of playing with somebody that you enjoy playing with improves even those times where you just get murdered right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Because you can laugh at it and you can queue back up together again, pick your character and dive again. Like, I think that's very true. Speaking to the random element of it, I think that is another reason why, I think that's a big reason why people continue to play this game over and these types of games, Battle Royale games, over and over and over again. Because you can look at what happened to you and you can blame it on everything but your skill level. Right. And you can say, oh, well, that was just a bad drop. Or, well, that time we got in a firefight and I didn't have a gun. Or that time I found a gun, but it was a crappy gun. It was a Mozambique, right? Or that time, we dropped too soon or we dropped too late. Or that time one of our squad mates disconnected or he didn't revive me. Or like, there's so many things in this game that you can blame somebody else for. Yeah. Or an external random number generation gods are frowning on me or whatever. And I think that makes it really easy to be like, and that's why next time is going to be better, right?
Yeah.
But next time is going to be better, and that's why I'm going to queue up and we're going to do this again. And it's just the whole model of the game is built on that, right?
Yeah.
Is that because there's enough randomness, you can blame your losses on the randomness, pull up your socks and move forward. It's not like, somebody was way better than you. It was just you got dealt a crappy hand.
Yeah.
So pick up your, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and head on back out there, right?
Keep going, yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting design aspect of this because it means that even in those moments where you feel frustrated, you're not frustrated at yourself or your lack of skill, or even the fact that there's somebody out there that was way better than you, maybe not.
Yeah.
It was just that I got dealt a crappy hand, so let's try it again. And I think that's a really important aspect of Battle Royale games in general. I think that's a really interesting way to look at it, at least for me. Yeah, I think there's also some interesting counterintuitive aspects about a Battle Royale game. For example, when you hear a firefight, in some games you're like, maybe I should kind of look around and, move away from the firefight because I don't want to be caught in the crosshairs. In this game, because of the way that the fighting and the healing and the reviving works, that if you can catch two groups fighting each other, that you can go in and clean up the leftovers.
Right.
A lot easier than you could if you had to fight just another group at full strength, 3v3.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a little bit counterintuitive in some of the aspects of the game where you think it'd be better off if I waited, as opposed to, no, you got to rush them down. And that's the same in a firefight. When you put damage on somebody, when you go to heal yourself up, that's exactly what the other team is doing as well. So it's better in some of those cases where you push forward and you get those kills because they're trying to revive themselves and you have the opportunity to take them out. And that, again, seems counterintuitive from playing like, Quake or Unreal Tournament or all those FPSs that I played in the old days, right?
Right.
Where in those games, you can just go pick up new armor and pick up new health. So you just want to run away and find those things as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Whereas in this game, you carry it with you, right? So, and then you need time to apply your health pack or your armor pack or whatever. So yeah, there's a learning curve in this game that you don't have time to learn within the first, I don't know, I'd say probably 24 games, where you just don't have enough time to read what's on the screen, what guns do, how guns work, to try all the different guns. And the training mode is mostly just how do you move around in the world and try out some of these guns. But I think even doing some AI bots where you get some practice with like running around and shooting moving targets would be really beneficial in this game. And I hope that kind of thing comes in the future, because it's really hard to practice aiming and targeting and running and gunning when you're against real opponents that in most cases, like you said, are better than you.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I have been watching, just because of my interest in this game, like tips for getting better at Apex Legends, right? And one of the things they did recommend was using that training area as a way of kind of practicing your aim. But I think it would be helpful if they had some mode where, you could practice with bots or something.
Right.
Because it is a lot of learning on your feet, and obviously some of us learn slower than others. So
just throw them in the deep end, right?
Yeah, this game very much is throw them in the deep end. And if you haven't been playing this game from the beginning or close to it, like if you were to jump in now fresh, it's going to be even more of a steep kind of curve to get you up to a proficient level. So
sure.
I guess there is that, but it's still early days. I mean, it's pretty much guaranteed that they're going to be throwing more time and effort into this game.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of excited to see where they're at. My interest in this is still pretty high, so I will keep playing regularly. And I'll probably just keep checking back in to see what kind of new stuff they add to it.
Sure.
Do you foresee yourself kind of, I know the technical issues on your end kind of really make it tough for you to kind of sink a lot of time into this game.
Yeah, I think so. If I'm playing with a friend, whether you or some of my other friends that play, I will, without a doubt, I'd be like, yeah, let's play together. That would be awesome. Solo, I like shooters. I don't play enough of them, and it's something that I've enjoyed in the past. It's interesting that after I started with this and I was running into crash issues, I loaded up CS:GO on Steam because
Oh,
it's another
nice.
free-to-play shooter.
Yep.
And the big difference between the two, obviously, this is a newer game and it doesn't run at full, ultra settings on my computer because my computer's a little older too, whereas CS:GO does because it's an older game, right?
Yep.
But also, like I was talking about the way the bullets work in this game versus CS:GO, there's that difference as well. But when I was playing CS:GO, and I haven't even played it before. I played the original way back when, and I've played lots of other shooters that weren't CS:GO or Apex.
Yep.
But I was like, I want to try another shooter that a lot of people play that is still like a competitive first-person shooter, and I want to see how I do there, where the systems and the core gameplay loop are a little different, right?
Right.
So just a bit of, in CS:GO it's team-based again, it's 5v5 generally, and you're playing to complete an objective in the mission while the other team is trying to stop you from completing an objective. And when you die, you wait for your team to finish. So it's still kind of last man standing, because if you wipe out the entire enemy team, your team wins, and vice versa,
Yeah.
right? As well as if you complete the objective and the team can't stop you, then you win. Now, what's interesting though is that instead of going through picking a character again and then going through a drop and then going into the shooting, CS:GO starts almost right away. You're in in shooting mode.
Yeah.
Which means that you're practicing the core of the game, which is the firefights, way more frequently, and it happens way more often. And I found that I was at least halfway up the charts on my team, if not close to the top or the top on my team,
Right.
in CS:GO. And it was weird to play that game and then this game and feel like in Apex I was just the bottom of the barrel, and speaking of the barrel, I'm just like a fish in the barrel. Like I'm just
Right.
swimming in this little hole, and everybody comes in and they just throw a grenade in there and I'm dead over
Yeah.
and over and over again, right? Whereas in CS:GO, I felt like I was very competent in the game. And I've played shooters before, so it felt more natural in CS:GO for me to play that. And that's why I couldn't figure out why I felt so awful at this game.
Yeah.
And I still haven't figured it out. I know that part of it is metrics. In CS:GO, even knowing who shot you last, how much life they had, what gun they shot you with,
very
how
true,
much damage they did, all of a sudden I'm like getting all this feedback on my death, and it can help me improve for next time. Oh, okay, so next time I can see now if I was ducking here, or if I was grabbing cover a bit better, or if I didn't walk around that corner right into a shotgun, that kind of thing.
Right.
If I played that corner a little smarter. In this game, I have none of that feedback.
Yeah.
So I was already improving in CS:GO to the point where I'm getting to the top of my 5-person squad.
Yeah.
And in this game, I'm not.
Huh.
And I find that really, really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Just the way that the game gives feedback. Now, again, the gunplay is different in the game. The bullet spread and the gunplay, all that kind of thing is different from game to game. But I just felt like I could do better in that game than I could in this game.
Right.
And I've since, I've looked online, why is it that I'm good at Overwatch or CS:GO or whatever, but I'm crappy at Apex?
Yeah.
And there's lots of, Reddit discussions on that exact same thing. There's tons of people talking about, how aiming feels a little bit different, or guns feel a little bit different, or the bullet decline, like we talked about with gravity and that kind of thing. So I don't really know what it is. I just know that from playing game to game, this game I feel not very good at, and other games I feel pretty competent with.
Yeah.
And they're still shooters. So I just thought that was an interesting point to mention.
For sure. Yeah, we should play some Counter-Strike. I had a summer in college where I think all I did was wake up and play that game. And since putting this PC together, that is one of the games that actually runs quite well, because it's an old game.
Yeah.
That I have fired up, and I've had a lot of fun playing that. So yeah, we should definitely play that sometime, and then maybe chat about it here.
Yeah, sounds good.
So yeah, with that said, I think that kind of wraps up our thoughts on this game. I think there's no harm in trying it.
Definitely not.
It's
Try the
free.
game. Try the game.
I think we'll definitely play some more together whenever we get the chance, and hopefully they fix a lot of the kind of technical issues that you're experiencing.
Speaking of that, the devs do seem quite responsive to the community. They know that these things are an issue. They know that they've got fixes on the go and they're working on it. Apparently, they were meeting with both NVIDIA and AMD folks to kind of figure out how best to optimize for different hardware and things like that. I know that this last patch, my friend that my other buddy that I play with is running an AMD graphics card, and he was having similar issues to me, and this last patch fixed some of those issues for him, so he doesn't crash as much anymore.
Right.
I thought I was lucky, but apparently I'm not. So maybe, next patch, or maybe I got to look at my own settings and figure out what's going on my end.
Yeah.
But I don't know. At this point, I'm not sure. But I'm still willing to, like I said, I get more value out of playing with other people than I do solo in this game anyway. So, but definitely check the game out. It's worth your time. It's worth your money. I mean, it doesn't cost anything.
Yeah.
It's also, in comparison, we were looking at Destiny 2, which was, the first section of it was free. That's like an 80 gig download. This game's like 20 gigs. So it's even worth your download speed.
For sure.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, check it out. I mean, you've probably heard of this game, if not tried it, but for those of you that, it's worth a shot. And it's available, like I said, for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation 4. So, yeah, give it a shot. So with that said, we'll wrap up this episode. Hopefully this episode sounded okay to those audio listeners.
Yeah, let us know. This is the first time we're using these lapel mics. This is the first time we're recording it live in this way.
Yeah, we're if you watch the YouTube version, it'll kind of make sense. I have this kind of like OBS setup where I can kind of toggle in between gameplay and camera, and there's my desktop. So that's not very interesting, but yeah. So if you like this format, let us know. Yeah, like I said, I think the goal of this is to produce these things a little bit faster than what it was taking before. So fingers crossed this works, because that ultimately means that we can produce more content, which is the thing that we like to do here.
Indeed.
So with that said, as always, thanks for listening, and say goodnight, Darin.
Good night, James.